Hey girl, Marissa here. You are listening to the Codependent Dummy podcast. As a young woman, you have been raised, reinforced, and rewarded for putting the needs of others above your own. Now, in your 20s, you're finding yourself exhausted, exasperated, and enveloped in shit relationships, especially the one you have with yourself. Codependency is a way of being where we put the feelings, wants, and needs of others above our own in an unconscious attempt to meet our own feelings, wants, and needs. Sorry to break it to you, sis, but that is not sustainable. This podcast is to help you undo all that so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. Let's get to it. Oh, hello, stranger. Fancy seeing you here. Today's episode, butt massages. What poor physical boundaries look like. I will reveal what that means in a few. Before that, let's check in. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How's your week been? I'm curious if you signed up for the 30-day self-validation challenge. If not, here's my pitch, okay? Girl, do you want to stop seeking validation like a codependent dummy and start validating your goddamn self? I created this 30-day self-validation challenge because I know firsthand how familiar codependents are with self-hatred, self-criticism, self-doubt, self-sabotage. By the end of the 30 days, you'll be familiar with self-validation. It's a practice. And honestly, you'll be more familiar with yourself. That is the goal. Consciousness. You'll also be walking taller, speaking louder, not playing as small, and taking up space. If you have yet to sign up, go to www.codependdummy.com/challenge. To join, can set the ball in motion to a healthier, more conscious, and self-validating you 30 days from now. All right. Today's episode, the focus is on boundaries. And underneath that umbrella, we're going to focus on physical boundaries. For starters, what is a boundary? According to Google, a boundary is something such as a river, a fence, or an imaginary line that shows where one area ends and another area begins. It's also defined as a limit of a subject or a sphere of activity. Right? So boundaries between cities, between neighbors, where my yard ends and your yard begins. Boundaries of, I'm a dummy right now. Topographical regions. I hope I said that correctly. And if I didn't, I didn't. Boundaries. For codependents, The term boundary means an invisible and symbolic force field that has 3 purposes. Okay, baby girl, listen up. 3 purposes of boundaries. First, boundaries keep people from coming into your space and abusing you. Second purpose, they keep you from going into the space of others and abusing them. And third purpose for boundaries is to give you a way to embody your sense of self, who you are. That is from Pia Mellody's book, Facing Codependency. I have referenced it multiple times. I will reference it multiple times in the future. I will put a link in the show notes. Now, there are many, many types of boundaries. Like we have 5 common senses, taste, touch, sound, etc. There are overarching types of boundaries. And then under those overarches, there are even more specific boundaries. They're endless. Okay, girl, just know this. And you have and can have any and all types of boundaries that you want. The main types are physical, I already mentioned this, sexual, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, material, and time. We are going to cover all of them as we proceed with the podcast. And today I want to focus in on honor physical boundaries. Pia Mellody writes that physical boundaries, right, it's our body, and physical boundaries allow you to choose your distance from other people, and they enable you to give or refuse permission for other people to touch you or your private property. That is a physical boundary. You are mindful, conscious when you have a physical boundary. You are mindful and conscious of how close you stand to others and how close they stand to you. Now, a couple details I want to add. Boundaries are culturally specific. In some places and regions, there are a shit ton of people, and maybe they all take public transportation. If you are in closer proximity to others, thanks to being in a subway, and that is the norm, there may be less of a distance in physical boundaries for the people in that area, in that culture. Physical boundaries are also familial. They're family specific. Some families are more affectionate. Some people their dad never hugged them. Some families never closed their doors. That's more like a spatial boundary, but you get the point. Some families kiss on both cheeks, hugs, shake hands, etc. Those all have to do with the body. And boundaries are gender specific. Women tend to touch other women more. Female friends tend to hug. We can link arms, we can hold their hands, and can show more physical affection to women and men, while men in general, we're speaking in big general terms, they often have stronger and more rigid physical boundaries with other male friends where they do not show physical affection. They do not touch or hug as often. They do a fist pump or shake hands or little like hug with a pat, back pat, etc. Boundaries are often modeled to us by who? Who, baby girl? Who models boundaries? Who is Marissa going to say? If you've been listening to me long enough, I think you know the answer. They are often modeled to us by our parents and other significant authority figures in our lives. Pia Mellody writes, quote, codependents demonstrate the boundary systems that their parents had. They are learned, baby girl. And if you sense that you would like to make changes to your physical boundaries, whether you'd like them to be stronger or more flexible, know that because they are learned, they can also be unlearned, adjusted, tended to, and changed. We can change them if we want to. Why are boundaries important? Why am I talking about them? Why are they such a popular hashtag on Instagram and TikTok? Why do we talk about boundaries and the word boundary all the time, but we're not in the UN and designating where places are on maps? Like, why is this such a buzzword? Well, boundaries are important because you need them so you do not get walked all over or trampled on by others, physically and or emotionally. Boundaries are important because if you have them, you are thus able to be present. You're not worried about the person sitting next to you making you uncomfortable and figuring out how you can move without offending them. Boundaries are important because you're able to focus on the task at hand, which is arguably the same thing as being present and also not. If your boundaries, your physical boundaries are being respected at work, you're not wondering if you're being sexually harassed and how you're going to tell HR about it. Boundaries are important because if you have them and they're intact, you're more efficient, effective, and energized. Again, you are not distracted trying to figure out if that was or was not appropriate, what the duration of your classmate's hand was on your lower back. Boundaries are also important because if you have them and you keep them, you don't have to do all the effort and labor it takes to, when they are violated, push someone back outside of your boundary, physically, emotionally. You don't have to do the work to repair the boundary, right? Like a fence, you don't have to push it back up and dig back in and put it back in the ground. And you also don't have to deal with the effort and labor that comes if you have to replace the whole thing because it was so damaged. It takes a lot of courage and strength to uphold boundaries. And it takes a lot of effort and courage and strength again to build a new one. They are so, so important to, to give you more time, more life. You're not wasting your time and life repairing all these damaged boundaries. Physical boundaries, poor boundaries in action. I'm going to share about 2 experiences. And while you are listening, I want you to pay attention to if it resonates, how come? Also ask yourself as I've been talking, who comes to mind when I say, who do you need to set physical boundaries with? Or who do you need to set better physical boundaries with? Pay attention. You have already heard my lack of multiple boundaries with married men in my early 20s. If you're new, you can listen to the episode that aired on May 10th of 2021. And I'm going to take a sip of water because my voice is already telling us that I've been podcasting for a couple minutes. Hydration. Hope you're staying hydrated, baby girl. Back in 2017, I was working my ass off in community mental health. I've talked about that as well. The sacrificial helper that I was. And I developed severe lower back pain because I was tasked with driving all over LA County / in parking lots that happen to be freeways. And to cope with the lower back pain, I started to see a chiropractor 3 times, and then I went to 2 times, and then 1 time a week. And this chiropractor, we'll call him Mr. Chatty. I fucked up and set a precedence very early on in our appointments together where I would go first. I was first because I had work, so I'd go at 8 a.m. and they'd hook up the electrodes to my lower back. They'd use a super amazing massager, and then I would go to his office for an adjustment. So he'd crack my neck, crack my upper back, crack my lower back. All in all, my time with Dr. Chatty required 5 minutes. And the precedence that I set along with him was I would arrive to his office and we would talk about the state of mental health department. We would talk about the state of the US economy. We would discuss his philosophy on climate change. I got to know Dr. Chatty very well. because being codependent and wanting his approval as I wanted everyone's approval, being codependent and not wanting to be perceived negatively, especially rude, I never said, Mr. Chatty, I only have time to be adjusted today and I have to get to work. I apologize and I need to get going. I couldn't do it. So for the 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week that I would see him, probably went for a solid 6 months, if not a year. I endured these chats. And once my lower back started feeling better, and I also sensed that I was growing tired of these half an hour long appointment chats, I stopped going. However, I was still working at the job. I was still driving all over LA County in traffic that felt more like a parking lot as opposed to a freeway. And in late 2018, I believe around a year after I'd been going, maybe I'd stopped seeing him for a couple weeks or months, I looked for another chiropractor, right? I can't tell Mr. Chatty I only have a couple minutes and just stick with this doctor who did a great job. His nurses were great. They always had availability if and when I needed to go in. I couldn't go back because I didn't want to request, assert the fact that I needed to be in and out and on my way. So codependent that I was, I looked for another chiropractor. And I found one very close to my office, went in for the first intake session, did the electrodes. So they connected those to my back. They did a similar type of massage, and then he would adjust me. I was in and out. No discussion, no philosophy, no chat. Great. However, it ended with the butt massage. In between the first appointment with precision, efficiency, no philosophy, and the last, I sense that being codependent, not wanting to object, complain. What else do I hate doing? I hate bothering, burdening. Yeah, I don't want to bother. Offend, can't offend. In my effort to avoid doing those things, I was unconsciously being groomed by, we will call him Dr. Creepy. Dr. Creepy. Because there was grooming where over time, my physical boundaries, my physical comfort was pushed just a little bit. And Dr. Creepy, very similar treatment protocol where I would go twice a week for a couple weeks, once a week for a couple weeks. Then I think it went down to once every other week. And during our initial appointments, started to get familiar with him. And he would talk about his daughters who were the same age as me. He talked about his wife and what she did in the community and what he did and trips that they went on. Yeah, it was very fatherly, just sharing about his life at random intervals during our appointment. And I sensed that he was conveying to me, I'm just the nicest, aren't I? And I would think, yeah, like you are the nicest. He had a cool nurse. She would come in once a week and give these chiropractic massages. So I started seeing her. There were other patients during our appointments, and so in other rooms. And so when he started to push these boundaries, I would rationalize that he wouldn't be doing something inappropriate when the nurse is just outside. He wouldn't be doing something inappropriate when there are other patients being seen. And yet these little violations started. I would go in for my appointment and I would wear leggings. So they worked for my work, but they also worked for the chiropractor. And I would lay down and I pull my leggings down because it was my lower back. My lower back was the area of irritation. And so I would pull my leggings down slightly to where my back ended, to the end of my lower back. So I wouldn't go down, no crack, no butt crack, nothing. And he would come in to set up the electrodes and he'd inch my pants an inch. And I would think, okay, that's interesting. That was the first odd limit push. There was no, I'm going to pull your pants down slightly because of the electrodes. I want to get your pants lower because I want to focus on slightly below your lower back to help the area. No, no verbiage, no consent. And that was happening. I was slightly uncomfortable. And also, I don't want to offend. I don't want to bother. I don't want to critique. I don't want conflict. No conflict, Miss Dr. Creepy. No conflict. Marissa, no fucking conflict. Let the man do his job. And soon after that, I, wearing leggings, expensive leggings, non-see-through leggings. Sometimes I wore thong underwear that if I'm pulling my pants down enough, there is no need, no reason for him to know this and or touch my underwear. The nurse is walking by, there are other patients, and he would pull my pants lower, and then I would have the electrode treatment. He would come and disconnect them, and then he would pull my thong up and put it back in place, and then pull my pants up. And I am making a face for all the listeners like, again, questioning him, but sadly questioning myself. He's chatting while we're talking. There are other people around. He's a father of daughters. He's married. This is helpful, right? These thoughts, these fucking thoughts that torment us. And this all culminated because I kept going. Don't want to offend, don't want to bother, no conflict. And it all culminated one morning. I went in. I don't believe anyone else was there at the time. No cool nurse, no assistant at the front desk, no other patients. Went in, pulled my pants down, adjusted my pants, and waited. He came in, pulled my pants down, hooked up the electrodes. I had that treatment. And sometimes they would use a CBD oil to massage afterwards. And he came in, started to provide the CBD massage to my lower back, my tailbone. My tailbone, that region, that is where the pain was. That is where my complaints were. And we're talking. I think I was trying to buy a home with my husband, and his daughter just bought a home. And we're talking. I'm laying there, very vulnerable. And he pulled my pants down, revealing arguably half of my butt. And it created, we talk about muffin tops with our hips. It's like a muffin top with my butt. And we're talking the whole time. We are conversing. And there was no, I'm going to pull your pants down lower. I'm going to adjust your pants for a further reach, which sounds gross as I say it. There was no warning, no asking, and no consent. And he pulled them down, and then he proceeded to massage my butt. And he was massaging the top of my butt and talking. And I remember laying there and I felt so uncomfortable. Just imagine, I'm sure you can, codependent, because you've been there too. I felt so uncomfortable. And yet I thought it's the region. This is a chiropractic massage. He's talking the whole time. Like, how can he be talking and being inappropriate? And I didn't say anything. I didn't say one fucking word. I honestly, I was questioning him, and he kept the same tempo and beat to our conversation, and I mirrored that. I kept the same tempo and beat. And he finished. I think he pulled my thong up and my pants. And there was a time to, like, he would step out and you could get yourself together. And so I remember standing up and maybe fixing my pants slightly more and grabbing my purse and my coat. And I walked out to the front desk and did I say anything? No. We logged into the system. I paid. And you guys, I made another appointment. I sensed the frequency at that time because my back was feeling better. Might have been every other week. And whatever the 2-week interval was for that next appointment, I made it. I made that appointment. I couldn't say anything. Couldn't do it, you guys. And my sister, my twin sister, I remember I talked with her. I think I called her pretty soon after. And I said, hey, because of course I couldn't verify myself. I couldn't validate myself. I had to call her to run what happened by her. And she remarked, what? And I was like, yeah, he massaged my butt. It felt weird. I felt weird. And she was like, Marissa, I can't remember her exact verbiage, but I think she agreed. Marissa, that's fucking weird. That's not appropriate. That's chiropractors don't massage people's butt. And thankfully I called her. So I'll thank my unconscious, semi-conscious thought to call her. I wonder if I'd called someone else, they might have said, like, you probably didn't mean it. It's protocol, right? All the things I was saying. And thankfully, my sister validated my doubt, my hesitation, my discomfort. And I do remember it was a Friday. So Saturday, his office, Dr. Creepy's office, was closed. And Sunday, his office was closed. And on Monday at 9 a.m., when it opens, I called him. And I said, hey, Dr. Creepy. He answered, all jolly. I'm a good guy, right? And I said, very, very briefly, because I'd rehearsed it 1,000 times, no conflict, don't offend, don't bother, Marissa. I was breaking all these rules. I said, hey, Dr. Creepy, I need to cancel my next appointment, right? That appointment that I made. I need to cancel my appointment and I won't be coming back. What you did during our last appointment was inappropriate. And I won't be coming back. And he went, "Oh." And I said, "Okay, bye." And I hung up. No conflict, don't offend, don't bother, don't criticize. And I went back to Dr. Chatty. And I was better with Dr. Chatty, and I would assert, I only have 5 minutes. I only have 10 minutes, Dr. Chatty. And thankfully, I left that position. So I no longer had lower back pain from all the driving, and thus didn't need to navigate these interactions. And yet, my codependency taints all of these experiences. Why I stayed in the job, why I stuck it out with Dr. Chatty, why I tolerated Dr. Creepy, why I went back to Dr. Chatty. And this is what happens when we fail to honor our boundaries. But massages from creepy chiropractors. And I can point the finger at Dr. Creepy all day. It was inappropriate. It was unprofessional. It was a violation. I also want to acknowledge my contribution, my enabling, my colluding. It's not all my fault. It's not all your fault. And I just wish I had given myself permission at the first sign of creepiness, or I wish I would have mentioned the first sign of creepiness to my sister rather than wait several violations, several boundary pushing experiences later. So, what comes up for you? How does that resonate? How do you relate? Your homework, ask yourself these questions. Who, if anyone, in your life is violating your physical boundaries? Even if it's just moving your pants an inch lower, that's a violation. In what ways are you trying to avoid, hint, or passively assert your physical boundaries? What would you prefer their physical contact with you looked like? How can you trust that your gut reaction, for a physical boundary is okay to set? I'm not sure if that makes sense. How can you trust that your gut reaction, right? Your intuition for a physical boundary is okay to set. Yeah, how can you trust that? How can you trust it's okay to set that boundary? And last, how can you go about setting it this week? And that is it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your emails and your updates. Bettering yourself, working on your codependency. I am in this with you. I am rooting for you. Please root for each other and me. Apparently, these wounds hurt. It's been years, and I hope, if given the opportunity, I would set that boundary like a codependent diamond. And yet, right, I'm recording this solo cast because I'm doing better at not wasting my time, right? Time boundaries, interviewing people who I don't sense will resonate with you guys. But I've learned that very recently. So I'm rooting for you. I know you're rooting for me. Root for each other. Let's all go out there and set the physical boundary we've been sensing is needed this week. And I will see you next week. Hey girl, it's Marissa again. I'm not like a regular podcaster, I'm a cool podcaster, right? Thank you for listening and staying till the end. You can find me on Instagram at Therapy with Marissa. Email me, marissa@codependummy.com. Check out codependummy.com for more information on the show. And baby girl, a subscribe, rating, and review would be much appreciated. Till next time, I want you to remember, if you are feeling unseen, I see you. If you are feeling unheard, I hear you. And if you think that you don't matter, know that you matter to me. I want you to go out there so you can stop playing small and start taking up space, you dummy. And now, the disclaimer. Girl, this is not therapy and I am not your therapist. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, publisher, or guests are rendering any legal, clinical, or other professional service. If you want or need a professional, please find one.